with my company to open both my companies.
Yeah.
Actually, that kind of networking wasn't mine. I didn't have that kind of networking. So I was starting nearly from zero.
Yeah.
And this is something not just that I learned, but I mean, that's something that you have to not just try, but sometimes be someone like that, which is don't be afraid to knock on doors. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to try.
Right.
And learn from them. Learn from.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. Today I'm here with Fabio, and first of all, Fabio, thanks for taking the time. How's everything going in hot Spain?
Well, hot, as you said. Thank you very much for having me here, Ole. It's a pleasure. It's my pleasure being again after, well, the good time we had here in Valencia when you came with Eduardo. So it's always a pleasure being here with you and chatting.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure having you here. And today we get a little bit extra time, a little bit extra time to dive into your background and history, and not just part of like the ESPS video, which of course those of you that are tuning in can check in our YouTube channel as well. But today, you're the man of the hour. We're going to talk a little bit about your experience, your background, like a lot of the good stuff that you've been through in your career. And I think we just kind of like have to start with like, take us a little bit through like how your journey in the sport industry started.
That's a very good question, because to myself, I think that I was born in sports because my family, I always say that I have sports in my blood.
Right. Because
my grandfather, both grandfathers, one of them was a football player in Brazil. And he used to play for Botafogo by the time Garrincha and all those Milton Santos, all those players played in Rio de Janeiro in Botafogo. Right. So he was part of that team.
Yeah.
And my other grandfather used to be the vice president of a very known club in Brazil, Grêmio, or Porto Alegre. So I was born in the middle of it, right? I was born living football, living sports, but that's not the reason why I became sports business executive or whatever. I came into this world. I mean, I think that once I finished my studies in university in Brazil, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I came to Spain. And that's very curious because I didn't know what to do, so I came to do a PhD when I was 25 years old.
Right.
And after 2 years, I realized that I didn't want that. I said, I graduated in law in Brazil, and I said, but this isn't really what I want to do. And I actually looked myself at the mirror and said, stop everything. I want to get down. I want to leave. I looked to myself and said that in loud. And I realized that I wanted to do something else. So I took another year just thinking, studying, and seeing what kind of opportunities the marketing was offering, right?
Right.
And in 2007, Brazil was trying to host both World Cup and the Olympic Games.
Right.
And then they decided that Brazil was actually going to host them. And then I saw an opportunity, and I said, okay, so this mixes a lot of things that I know and that I like. I like sports. I know the Brazilian market. I know the people. I know people from football. I know people from entities, from the government.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so this is a very good opportunity that I have. So I went to Brazil. I went back to Brazil on vacation, and I was chatting with a friend, and we said, so listen, why don't we think about like setting a company or something that goes and takes this opportunity of doing something different with the World Cup and the Olympic Games. And he said, okay, I'm up to, let's do it. So I came back to Spain after just to pack up my things and went back to Brazil, opened one of my companies, and we had this vision, right? So we wanted to be a reference in sports when the World Cup came.
Right.
And actually, we did a lot of good businesses, and we learned very much, improved and increased our network.
Yeah.
And it was very great. I think what made me be where I am here is definitely three words. I think it's passion. It just, like I said in the beginning, because of my blood. I mean, that takes passion for you to be part of it, and opportunity, and also having the vision because sometimes you have the opportunity, but you don't have the vision to make it through, to make it happen, right? So I think that's what happened.
No, it makes total sense, and I mean, like, it's. I'm glad you're kind of like bringing up opportunity, right? And opportunity to be like creating it, but also taking the opportunity when it's there. And I think sometimes, especially in sports, we're kind of like always looking for the perfect opportunity or the perfect team or the perfect club to like work for, and then you realize, but what if that doesn't happen? What's your plan B, plan C? Like, how do you adapt and adjust accordingly to that? But I wanted to talk a little about a little bit where you are today, because obviously you just finished your MBA in international sports management at ESPS. So first of all, congrats on that. I know you're waiting on your final stuff, but talk a little bit about your experience of the program and a little bit about your game plan moving forward.
Well, actually, I came to Valencia. I was living last time I came to Spain, like 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, saying that out loud, 5.5, it seems like it was yesterday. But I came to Galicia. I had a job opportunity after I quit, because as I said, I had businesses in Brazil, but then I left, I quit. And I came to a job opportunity that was offered by someone I knew here in Spain. And it was in Santiago de Compostela. And after 4.5 years working there, the main reason I came to Spain wasn't because I had that role at that job, was because I thought that it was time for me to leave, to do something different, and especially because I wanted to learn.
Right.
I wanted to do an MBA.
Yeah.
As I said, I was studying when I was 25, a PhD in law that I had nothing to do with it. And after I was working for nearly 10 years with my companies, I said, so now what I really want to do, I knew what I wanted, is an MBA in sports management. So I came to Spain. I was taken by this opportunity. So I was brought here because of that opportunity. And after 4.5 years, I said, this is the time. Now I can do it. Now I can spend some time just studying and doing what I really want.
Right.
And I came to Valencia because of the SPS, because of the course.
Yeah.
And I'm spending a very good time here. I mean, I knew when I was working with my companies that some parts of my business I didn't know very much, like financials, like administrations, like running the business. I was the sales, I was the business development guy.
Okay.
I wasn't the administration guy. I wasn't the financial guy. I wasn't.
Yeah.
But when you have a company, at least you need to have someone who understands very much of those aspects.
Right.
But I knew that I had to improve. So this is one of the main reasons that took me here to this course. And I got what I wanted. I mean, I learned, I got better, I improved. And my game plan is always to keep growing and keep learning. There's a very good sentence that I heard once. I don't know if it's from him, but I heard him saying, Mark Cuban, he said that never stop learning because life never stops teaching. So for me, that's like really a very good quote. And this is what I'm really doing right now. I'm not stopping learning. I'm not stopping living, but I want to keep doing businesses just like I did, opening new markets. I had some very great classmates that I met.
Yeah.
I've opened different clubs from different continents that I didn't have before, and
Right.
projects that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge opportunity ahead.
But absolutely, and I mean, like, it's a very great quote and something to live by, because I mean, like, once you kind of think you learned everything, that's when you start that's when you start stopping, like your progress, and it's just part of that continuous development, and I mean, like, I think that's one of the reasons why the Sporting Global platform, without like talking too much about it, is that like we added like what's your favorite quote in your profile, because I think it's just each quote that each person has is maybe unique and different, and something that they can relate to and that speaks to them. And I think that's part of like what makes you and like what makes you take the decisions that you do, and kind of like the vision and the plan that you have. And so I think it's like a very important thing, and I'm glad you kind of like bringing that up, and it's a very critical part too of anyone's career, whether you're 20 or whether you're 50. It's like never stop learning. Always keep pushing and trying to learn from what's happening and progress.
But you said something, Oleg. You said that you think you're never ready, right? Or you want to be more and more ready, more and more ready. but you cannot wait to be ready, because
Right.
if you think that you can never stop learning, it means that you never be ready. But actually, the way you are right now, you need to understand the things you want and go after them. I mean, it's just don't wait for you to be ready, because if you live by that sentence, by that quote, you'll never be. So just go for it.
No,
Don't be
exactly.
afraid.
And that's what people sometimes like, they're very focused on, like, oh, I gotta make everything ready and then I start going. But it starts once you take that one step in front of each other, like the one step forward, and you keep moving, and pushing and keep learning. And
But do you know that for me, sorry to interrupt you. Do you know that for me, it almost happened? Though that thing that no, I need to be ready. I need to learn. I need to do this MBA before I do everything. I was thinking, I had that in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I had to switch my thoughts. I had to. It was like a click. So
Right.
listen, you never be ready.
Right.
And so when I heard that Mike Cuban sentence, that quote, I said, so this is it. You don't need to be ready. Just keep on learning and do it.
Right. No, and I mean, like, it's sometimes that's like a mental switch that has to happen. And I think, like, again, what I think it's also like, it's not just necessarily like your own kind of mind of like you thinking that, but I think also we're getting kind of like, you kind of get teached in the sense that, okay, you're gonna do your school, you're gonna graduate, and then you're gonna work, like, and then it's like, what stops you from doing it before? What stops you from kind of like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone while doing all these things, And so we're kind of like always waiting. Okay, but people think it's like almost like a step-by-step guide, right?
I think you have to use it for something that is going to be good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, what I want to say is, for me, it works like, okay, I'm never going to stop learning, because I always want to be at least one step ahead of the market.
Right.
So I need to learn.
Yeah.
I need to improve. I need to get better and better and better every day. So that's how it works for me. It's not because I'm not ready. It's because I want to be ready before the others.
Yeah. No, but it's I mean, like, whatever kind of like, plan and vision that suits you, it's what works too, and that's what makes people different and have different goals and ambition. I mean, like, for me, like, my favorite quote is, if your day doesn't challenge you, don't ever expect to be changed by it. And so that's by Greg Plitt. And so that's something that I try to live by. And if I don't get challenged in the day, like, like, I'm not going to grow. So I always try to kind of like, okay, what in my day can I, like, explore or push out of my comfort zone to keep learning. So I keep growing.
Do you know that word challenge is very good for what we're saying right now? Because actually this course, the SPS, when I was the older student in my class. So for me, that was a challenge.
Right.
And that was something that I really wanted. It's not that I really wanted to be the older guy in school, but being the oldest, that means that you can learn from next generations. And that's what and it goes again along with what I was saying of being at least trying to be ahead of the market one step. So if you with people from other generations, for the next generation of sport business people who are going to run companies, run clubs, that was a very huge challenge, because it was always applications, technology, innovations, and it was great. That was really what I wanted to learn, what I wanted to improve also. Right. So it's good challenges. I'm moved by challenge too. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think they're kind of going a little bit hand in hand. Of course, like both quotes here in a sense. It's just, again, it's just all about that. That you always keep growing and essentially just, how do you get out of your comfort zone and maybe the bubble that we live in order to kind of like, move forward or take the next step, or just ensuring that, whatever the goal that we have, that we stay on top of that, and understanding that, we have to kind of push ourselves sometimes out of the comfort zone in order to reach those goals. But that's also okay. That's also fine. It's part of the.
Usually, most part of the time, you have to go out of your comfort zone. It's good when you're in a comfort zone, but just for a while.
Yeah,
if you want to reach something great, you need to be out.
Absolutely. Well, I think we need to move on a little bit because before you moved to Spain, and I know like you've been a little bit back and forth, and obviously you gained a lot of great experience in the industry, but part of that was owning two different companies, and you briefly mentioned it in the beginning, but talk a little bit about some of your key lessons of running your own companies and that you kind of like bring with you today. You know, obviously you took your MBA and stuff, but what are some of the things that you learned and some of the lessons that you took with you that you are utilizing today?
You know that when I said that both my grandfathers used to play, or one of them played and the other ran a club, uh, they were from a very not my generation, or not from my father's generation. They were from another generation of my grandfathers and their friends.
Right.
So when I went to Brazil to work with my company, to open both my companies,
Yeah.
actually that kind of networking wasn't mine. I didn't have that kind of networking, so I was starting nearly from zero.
Yeah.
And this is something not just that I learned, but I mean that's something that you have to not just try, but sometimes be someone like that, which is don't be afraid to knock on doors. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to try.
Right.
And learn from them. Learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. What took me here was because I learned from my mistakes and I knew what I had to improve, what I had to do different.
Right.
And when you start something new, I mean, you have to hold on to what you are, to your values. I think that's very important because it cannot be just a speech. Your actions need to follow your speech.
Right.
So you're more than what you say, what you are, you're what you say, you're what you look, what the other people see. And a company is that. A
Yeah.
company and a business is that. It's yourself, put it into a brand, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
that means another lesson. So choose the people you're going to work with. Of course, when you're starting a company and you have a few opportunities, sometimes you have just one. Of course, you're going to try it.
Yeah.
And maybe you do it good, maybe not. But if you share the same values, it's going to be much easier to keep on doing it for
100%.
many years. And especially to learn how to say no, because you feel comfortable saying no.
Yeah.
Because when something is very strong within you, like values, like being yourself and believing in what you sell and believing in what you want and what you're trying to bring to the market.
Right.
If it doesn't work, if it doesn't chat, if you don't have a conversation, it makes easier for you to decide.
Right.
So what I really think is that when I started, we had a plan, just like I said. So let's try to, our vision was to be a reference on sports business in our region, in Brazil, in the south of Brazil. And when by 2014, and that's exactly what happened. We did events, we did a lot of business with clubs, with national teams, with federations. So we did it. Mm-hmm. But on the way, we had to change. We had to adapt because having a vision, it's not running the path. So you of course, you see the path, you see the World Cup, you see the Olympic Games, you see what you want to do, but I was knowing myself too in that business. So I had to, once again, improve, once again, learn and adapt. And I think that adaptation is the key for a success business.
Yeah.
But always, if you have in mind what you want, what you are, and you respect it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that you have to follow.
Oh, I agree 100%, and it's a critical part of like any company success and journey too, because we're gonna do a lot of mistakes. It's gonna happen whether you like it or not. It's just part of the journey, and as we talk about too, it's like who do you bring on with you on that journey, and the values and the mindset. You know, I think it's the foundation of everything, and it has to talk a lot about. I remember like I just attended like a presentation with Jordan Peterson in Norway. It talked about like once you hire people, also ask them about their life plan. And so if that aligns better with what the company's kind of like plans and life plans is, you're gonna match much better. You're gonna get better results on the side. And so it's part of like that journey, and it goes back to it's like you learn along the way. You have to adapt. You have to change. Like pandemic happened, right? I mean, like you have to adapt, you have to, a lot of things happen along the way that you don't foresee and don't expect. And then you just have to kind of adjust accordingly to that. But yeah.
You know that there are two key aspects that I think that for me were very important.
Right.
One of them was that I had, as I said, two different companies. One of them was selling consultancy and advisory,
Yeah.
and the other one was bringing knowledge, sports knowledge, in like sports business knowledge, by doing events, courses, and all kind of things in this matter.
Yeah.
And I realized that if I wanted to sell a product, it was much harder than selling knowledge, than bringing people to teach to others, to the market. So once I brought people to teach,
yeah,
it wasn't me saying, it was the FIFA man, it was the huge club saying they had to do that.
Right.
So my clients, the people who were in that event, they were anxious. They were saying, "Oh, so I want to learn. So what should I do?" And then they came to me and said, "Fabio, help me. Okay, so I have this. I can give you an advisory. I can help you with a consultancy." So it was easier to do.
Yeah,
and the other thing is, if you feel complete, if you feel like the task is done, move forward. Don't stay there for too long. Go ahead. If you think it's finished, if the cycle is done, go ahead.
Right.
Just do it. Move to another one.
Yeah.
Another challenge.
Oh, 100%. No, it makes a lot of sense. You're just bringing up advice here. This is great. And I wanted to talk a little bit about obviously, you know, working. You also happen to work a little bit with major teams in Brazilian Football League. Obviously, close to the FIFA World Cup in 2014, as you talked about. But what made you essentially take the decision of going to Spain? Like, what was the thought process like? You were doing well in, Brazil, doing a lot of different things in the sport industry. Like, talk a little bit about that decision and just, okay, I need to go to Spain.
I lived in Spain when I was younger, when I was 8 years old.
Right.
From 8 to 12.
Yeah.
Came back to Brazil. Then lived here again from 22 to 23.
Yeah.
Went back to Brazil. Then came back from 25 to 28.
Yeah.
Went back to Brazil. And then Spain is like a part of me.
Right.
So it's not hard for me to come to Spain.
Yeah.
And during those periods, I was coming twice a year.
Right.
So just for 10 days, 15 days. So, but by that time, just like I said, when you feel complete or the task is done, we had that vision and we did it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, okay, now it's time to do something different. And I wanted to do an MBA.
Right.
And so but I was leaving my company. So I said, I cannot just go and stay there and do an MBA. And what else do I do? So I spoke with a few contacts I had, and they said, "Oh, so if you want to come to Spain, I have an opportunity for you. You can work here and do this." When I came and started doing that, it helped me improving my sales skills. It helped me to be more humble. It helped me because once you run a company, it's very different than working for someone else. Mm-hmm. So I improved in many personal aspects.
Yeah.
But then I realized I came here for the MBA. I came here to study. I came here and I was 4.5 years later and saying, I need to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's why I came to Valencia and then start doing my MBA just like I wanted. And that was the main decision. I want to do an MBA in Spain because I feel home there.
But I think an important part of what you're telling here too is like, yes, you have that goal of like, okay, I'm going to take like an MBA, but then you couldn't just kind of, okay, let me just travel there and just start that. Like you have to lay like some foundation before that happened. And I guess like talk a little about that kind of, I guess, process of okay, that's my goal, but like, what did I have to do in order to kind of like get there?
That's a very good word for that, which is having a plan. You need to have a plan.
Yeah.
What is your plan? So my plan is to do an MBA. My goal is to after doing this MBA, working exclusively again with sports. So I had that goal.
Right.
But the process wasn't the way I wanted. I wanted to just come and study and then but I couldn't. I had to pay for it. I have a daughter. I have a wife that was coming with me. So, and I didn't just want to come here to study. I wanted to live in Spain. I wanted to leave Brazil and come for a different life.
Yeah.
So I started setting what was strategically the main things. So I need to have a job. my kid needs to be fine. Also, my wife, we need to have a good life. And then when the time comes, I'm going to start an MBA. And that's exactly what happened. I put it and not on, I didn't have the time, the perfect timing that I wanted, but it happened. Yeah. So that's what actually today I just wrote on LinkedIn saying how happy I was because this was a dream that came true.
Make sure to share it on Sporting as well.
True.
But yeah, no. So I mean, like, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, like, if there's one thing people should take from, at least this section of the podcast too, is like, make a plan, and see how well you can follow that and what can happen and come out of it. And I think that's a very key point moving into the kind of like the last section and the last part of the podcast. You talked a little about, the game plan, the process of, decision of finally kind of like, okay, I'm going to take my MBA and here's some stuff I got to do moving to Spain. But in that process too, obviously you're moving your family, you're kind of starting a little bit fresh in a sense. And what have been some ways you have adapted and obviously as well, done in order to make the most out of this new chapter? Because I think sometimes, we go to a place, we perhaps go into our same habits and what are some of the ways where you kind of, okay, adapt into the situation, but also trying to make the most out of it for you and your family?
Yeah, I think that it's not easy, right, to do what I did and what my family did. Right. Actually, most part of the people don't do it.
Yeah.
So sometimes they can call me crazy even. But I think that just like you said, adapting and learning how to adapt. Well, you just saw my kid here, my daughter. She adapted. She got adapted with her. And so the main thing I think is that when you believe in what you really want and you know it, you feel exactly what you want, you don't have a problem to changing, to when you feel uncomfortable, to find a way, find a solution, because you're fighting for something.
Yeah.
And for me, I see it like that. It's like a challenge again. And the challenges were made to be, you have to fight for them. You have to fight for what you believe. And it's not easy. Like we said, the comfort zone, you have to leave your comfort zone, and adaptation is a part of it. And I came to a place in Spain. I mean, I speak Spanish, but I didn't speak Galician. So I went to a place where people in my co-workers used to speak Galician. So I had to learn how to speak Galician to understand what they were saying. For me, it was easier because I speak Portuguese and Spanish. So it's like a mix of both. But even that, it was a different environment.
Yeah.
Another, again, adaptation. So you have to be very focused on what you want, because it's not always beautiful. It's not always, but also Fabio went there and everything went fine and he did good. No. Everything didn't went fine. We had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
As I said, I didn't come alone. So it wasn't just my problem.
Right.
A family problem sometimes. But you have to keep on trying. You have to keep on, just like I said, when you make a mistake, learn from them. And so you won't do it again.
Right.
And know what you did good so you can do it again.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. That's how life is.
No, like it's 100% true. And that's why we talk about this too. Because I mean, like, I think also a lot of people, well, in many cases, you kind of just, it's been great. Like it's been amazing, being here. And I mean, like, of course, like, there's good days and bad days, but you have to talk a little bit about the challenges, that you're going to face. And I think dealing with those challenges is a lot easier when you kind of like have a game plan, right? And when you have a plan of, okay, where are we going, right? It's kind of like a company, right? It's like, what's your end goal and like, what's your vision? And then okay, you're going to work towards that. And so like the challenges you face along the way, it's just like, okay, we just have to adapt and adjust in order to continue reaching that, right? And it goes with the same thing. But then of course it's important as well for people that are listening, and I think a lot of them is kind of like perhaps individual people that maybe doesn't have a lot of baggage around them yet, but they're also important for them, for those of you that are listening that maybe have a family, maybe have that it is doable, you can do it, and it's part of that process.
And that the main challenge, I think, was, I said that I came to Spain many times, I lived here many times, but my wife didn't. Right. That was her first time in Spain.
Yeah.
So that was the main challenge. She was living, but she was leaving our country. We were leaving our country as a family.
Yeah.
It was her first time here. So everything was new.
Yeah.
The language, the people, the food, everything was new. So for me, the main challenge was not just to getting adapt to what I wanted, to what I needed, but also helping her getting adapt. So it was, that's the hard thing of it, right? When you think about what the past is, I'm an optimistic guy. I always think of, and I always think everything is going to be all right. And I always think when I realize, how good it was. No, but then when I start thinking and I go to the point and say, no, it wasn't that good. Right. We had those problems, but those problems helped us. Yeah. And what we are right now is mainly a part of all those problems too. 100%. 100%. Just don't be afraid. I think just don't be afraid. I think some people have what it takes and some people don't. Mm-hmm. But even if you don't have what it takes and you're not afraid, you learn how to do it. Right. And I think that's the main thing. Just go for it, believe it. Yeah. And go. Never stop learning. Never stop learning. So we touched upon a lot of different kind of, tips and advice throughout this podcast, but I want you to kind of, in a sense, cohesively kind of just narrow things down and talk a bit about what tips you have for people looking to get their foot in the sport industry and perhaps, looking to, study, work abroad. Like what would be like some key final tips, kind of like summarizing a little bit about what you've been talking about? I think that, as I said at first, the first things we spoken today, passion, whether you have it or if you're not passionate for what you do, it's going to come one day when you said, I want to leave it. I don't want to keep doing this. Yeah. Unless and some people do it, unless you're making a lot of money and you said, this is good for me. I'm in my comfort zone and it's good for me and I'm going to stay here. Yeah. But usually what happens is, if you don't have passion, and it's not going to be all about passion, you're going to have a lot of problems too. But if you don't have passion, and if you don't work and have a plan and a vision where you see that opportunity coming through, I don't think it's going to go. I don't think your business or your idea is going to go. It's going to happen. So try to be passionate about what you do, and look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am where I want, or at least I'm going where I want, and plan some steps. First, I want to be there, but plan first 1, 2, 3 steps and go for it. And I think I said it 20 times in our chat, but don't be afraid. And if you're not able, or you don't have that kind of personality of knocking on doors, partner to someone who has, because you're going to need it. Right. If you want to run a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to knock on people's doors, and you have to learn to not just say no, but when people tell you no, people are going to say, no, I don't want that, or not even going to answer your phone. Yeah. Or going to say, don't call me again. Right. But be true to what you are, as I said, to your values. Knock on doors. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. But just like in football, I think that football brings us, and in sports usually, brings us a very good class, which is learn why you win and learn why you lose, and take the best of it. Never stop learning. Yeah. When you lose or when you win, because then you know what it has to be done, so things really go the way you want. Awesome. Well, with that, Fabio, I would like to thank you, so much for taking the time and for sharing your tips and your story and insights with us and everyone that are listening. And for those of you that have been all the way at the end, make sure to like the video, subscribe as well if you haven't, to get weekly tips from people like Fabio sharing their stories and insights with you, so you can have it a little bit easier when you're going into the industry. And lastly, like Fabio, we have a little bit of
challenge in the Sporting Global podcast, and we talked a little bit about the word challenge today. But so I have a challenge for you that we have to do here. So I have to teach you a little bit Norwegian.
Love it. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right.
One of my passions. Speaking about passions, one of my passions is learning languages, new languages. So,
there you go. So now you're gonna learn Norwegian.
Ja, jag är brasilian. Jag vill ha en öl. No, svenska och Norge.
Hmm?
Is this svensk or Norge? I don't.
Yeah, it's more Swedish. It's more Swedish.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's close. You know, it's very close. So this will be easy for you. So with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means see you later in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say.
You have to say it again.
Vi snakkes.
Vi snakkes.
There you go. Great job. All right. Thank you so much, Fabio. We'll talk very soon.
Thank you, Ole.
All right. Bye-bye.